Hello, everybody. Mark Levin here. Our number, 877-381-3811. 877-381-3811. Wow, 3 great appointments today by President-elect Trump. We will get into this in a little while. Chuck Schumer has already announced, in essence, they're going to go to war over Jeff Sessions. And I know what they're going to do. They did it before to block him in 1986 when President Reagan nominated him for the Federal Court of Appeals. And we'll get into that. This ain't going to be any cakewalk. And we want to encourage President-elect Trump to continue to nominate conservatives, and we will fight to get them confirmed. 3 great nominations by Donald Trump. I'm very proud of what he's done here. And we are going to fight for every one of them. 2 of them require, I believe, confirmation. And he and his team have 100% backing from me, and I'm sure all of you. I've known Jeff Sessions, let's see, since the 1980s. How long ago was that, Mr. Producer? 35 years ago or so? I've known him about 30 years. Not every day, but I've known him about 30 years. When I was Chief of Staff to Attorney General Meese, and even before, when I was Special Counsel to Attorney General Meese, Jeff Sessions was United States Attorney for the District of Alabama, the entire state. Jeff Sessions had also been Attorney General of Alabama. Jeff Sessions has been a senator for 19 years. Now, I want you to listen to me. He is a thoroughly decent human being. He does not have a racist bone in his body. He is a soft-spoken man. He's an extremely intelligent man. He would make an outstanding Attorney General of the United States, unlike Loretta Lynch, unlike Eric Holder. He's an extremely ethical man. Now, what's being done to him is what they tried to do to him before when the president I worked for, Ronald Reagan, nominated him in 1986 to be on the appellate court. It's what they tried to do to Bob Bork. It's what they tried to do to Clarence Thomas. It's what they tried to do to scores of wonderful, solid, conservative men and women. And we must stand up to this. We cannot allow every single person we put forward for a prominent position to have their character assassinated. We cannot tolerate this any longer. All the decisions Jeff Sessions made as Attorney General of Alabama, all the decisions he made as United States Attorney of Alabama, all the decisions he's made as a United States Senator, tens of thousands of decisions, none of them have illustrated even a touch of racism. None of them. Now, as usual with the left, they always find some kind of hack out there in the shadows that come, I heard him say such and so. I heard him call somebody boy. Sessions has vehemently denied this. And I'll say this about Sessions. He's never worked for Louis Farrakhan. And I'll say this about Sessions. He's never supported the Muslim Brotherhood. He's never supported the Hamas front group, CARE. He's got exquisite credentials to be Attorney General of the United States. Exquisite. And now the left does what it always does. It goes into its Stalinist toolkit and seeks to personally destroy their opponents because they disagree with them. I just heard some fat slob on the cable news channel say, well, he opposed the reauthorization of the Voting Rights Act. You know, that part of the Voting Rights Act that appears in perpetuity to require states to get approval from the so-called Civil Rights Division of the Department of Justice for its various districts, local and statewide, congressional and below. Well, then that means all those Supreme Court justices who ruled that that part of the Voting Rights Act can no longer be applied to these states because there's no evidence whatsoever of systemic discrimination based on districting in any single one of those states. And when the Obama administration, through its Solicitor General of the United States, had the opportunity to present all the evidence it had in front of the Supreme Court, you know what it presented, Mr. Producer? Nothing. So now they say he opposes the Voting Rights Act to stir up their base, to get their base angry, to get them set up for 2 years from now. Oh, he opposes the Voting Rights Act. That must mean he opposes my right to vote. This is how it works. This is how it works. On the one hand, I'm encouraged, greatly encouraged by Donald Trump and his team for nominating Jeff Sessions, knowing damn well the hordes of leftists would rise up. So much for, we want to make the transition as smooth as we can, you know. We want to, George Bush did that for us, so we want to do that for you. We want this to be bipartisan. We accept the results of the election. We want to do all that we can do just to make it work as well as we possibly can. No, they don't. And I told you this the day after the election. These are lousy people. Mark Hemingway, great writer over at the Weekly Standard. Now that Jeff Sessions is Donald Trump's pick for Attorney General, you're going to hear a lot of people dig up old accusations that he's a racist. In fact, CNN did so last night. Screw you, CNN! Screw you! We know who you are with WikiLeaks. How dare you trash a man like this? How dare you participate in this? However, between the nature of the accusations and Sessions' actual record of desegregating schools, what? What was that? Of desegregating schools and taking on the Klan in Alabama. He did what? He took on the Klan in Alabama. Unlike Franklin Delano Roosevelt, who took the lawyer for the Klan in Alabama and put him on the damn Supreme Court. Unlike the Democrats in the Senate, who took a Grand Kegel of the Klan from West Virginia and made him the majority leader. And we have to sit here and listen to this crap? The party of slavery, the party of segregation, the party of Jim Crow lecturing us? Now the party of the Muslim Brotherhood, the party of CARE, the party of Louis Farrakhan? Oh, my goodness. These accusations all center around the bruising judicial nomination process Sessions went through in 1986. President Reagan had tapped Sessions to serve on the federal bench of the Judiciary Committee, ultimately rejected him after they heard that he had supposedly called the ACLU and the NAACP un-American and communist-inspired. Well, the ACLU is un-American and communist-inspired. And the NAACP is nothing more than a Democrat front group. There, I said it. But I'm not up for anything. The accusations came from Thomas Figures, a black assistant U.S. attorney who worked for Sessions, who said Sessions called him boy and had made a joke about how he thought the KKK was okay until he found out they smoked pot. Another prosecutor, J. Gerald Hebert, said Sessions had called a white lawyer a disgrace to his race for representing black clients. This guy, Hebert. Go to PJ Media, ladies and gentlemen. Read Christian Adams' expose. Herbert is his name. Read the expose of Mr. Herbert and who he is. There's no concrete reason, writes Mr. Hemingway, to doubt Figures or Herbert. Sessions vehemently denied calling Figures boy, but he didn't rebut the substance of some of the claims, though he asserted they were taken out of context. It's not exactly inaccurate to point out that the NAACP and ACL were communist-inspired, he writes. He thought it absurd to think he would make a pro-KKK joke considering it was prosecuting the Klan at the time. He made the remark. And for what it's worth, Figures also directed accusations at another assistant U.S. attorney who worked with him. That assistant U.S. attorney also said Figures wasn't telling the truth, and he defended Sessions' integrity. Ultimately, the charges were no more than hearsay. But it didn't matter. They seized on it. Sessions' actual track record certainly doesn't suggest he's a racist. I mean, after all, his mentor wasn't J. William Fulbright, the former senator, now dead, from Arkansas, who was a racist and a segregationist, and Bill Clinton's mentor. No. There's no accusation that Sessions was adopted by Al Gore Sr., another segregationist, who voted against the Voting Rights Act and the Civil Rights Act. No. There's no accusation like that. There's no accusation that his father was Joe Kennedy Sr., a well-known anti-Semite. No accusation about that. All these prominent leaders of the Democrat Party. There's no accusation that he blasphemed Catholics, as we know they did over there in the Clinton campaign and the DNC thanks to WikiLeaks, or evangelical Christians, as we know they did over there thanks to WikiLeaks. No indication of any of that. As U.S. Attorney, Sessions filed several cases to desegregate, to desegregate schools in Alabama. He also prosecuted the head of the Ku Klux Klan in the state, Henry Francis Hayes, for abducting and killing Michael Donald, a black teenager selected at random. Sessions insisted on the death penalty for Hayes. When he was later elected the state attorney general, Sessions followed through and made sure Hayes was in fact executed. The successful prosecution of Hayes also led to a $7 million civil judgment against the Ku Klux Klan, effectively breaking the back of the Klan in Alabama. Oh, he must be a racist. Jeff Sessions has done more to ruin the Ku Klux Klan than Chuck Schumer has ever done. He's done more to ruin the Ku Klux Klan than Nancy Pelosi has ever done, and for that matter, than Barack Obama has ever done. As a United States attorney, Sessions also prosecuted a group of civil rights activists, which included a former aide to Martin Luther King, for voter fraud in Perry County, Alabama. The case fell apart, and Sessions bluntly told me he failed to make the case. This incident has also been used to claim that Sessions is a racist. But it shouldn't be. The county had been dogged with accusations of voter fraud for decades. In 2008, state and federal officials investigated voter fraud in Perry County after, quote, a local citizens group gathered affidavits detailing several cases in which at least one Democrat county official paid citizens for their votes or encouraged them to vote multiple times, unquote. And a detailed story in the Tuscaloosa News reported that voting patterns in one Perry County town were also mighty suspicious in 2012. Quote, Uniontown has a population of 1,775 people, according to the 2010 census. But according to the Perry County Board of Registrars, has 2,587 registered voters. The total votes cast there Tuesday, 1,431, represented a turnout of 55% of the number of registered voters, a whopping 80.6% of the town's population. There seems to be a voter problem there. The fact that he's not successful in a prosecution indicates nothing more than he's not successful in a prosecution. The real reason they oppose Sessions, there's really two reasons. Number one, they want to dirty him up and if they can, stop him and send a message to Donald Trump. You better send us a bunch of liberal Republicans or even some Democrats, or we're going to drag you into the mud. So they're testing Trump. They're testing his team. And I suspect they're going to do just fine. But they're going to need you and me to take care of business here. Number two, they want to destroy Trump before he even gets out of the box. Sessions won't be the only one. They'll go after a number of others as well. They did it with Reagan. You just got to be strong and you got to fight back. This is about their ideology. They do not accept the results of elections, period, unless they win them. Unless they win them. And when they win them, they tell the Republicans, you know, the president has a right to his team. No matter how radical Obama's appointees, they almost all slide through. No matter how radical. The Democrats are talking about Keith X, a.k.a. Keith Ellison, as chairman of the Democrat National Committee. Keith Ellison, who worked for Farrakhan. And I'm supposed to believe he's not an anti-Semite? Oh, well, I didn't know they were involved in all these things. Sure you didn't, pal. Keith X. With his ties to hard, radical Muslim organizations, not mainstream Muslim organizations, some of the worst of the worst. Now, we can't put up with this, ladies and gentlemen. Whether you're a national populist agrarian or a constitutional conservative, we must unite in these battles. We absolutely must. Jeff Sessions is an outstanding choice for Attorney General of the United States. And we're going to defend him to the end. I'll be right back. All right. Let's go to David, Tallahassee, Florida, the great WFLA. Go.
Hey there, Mark. I was just calling as a first-time caller, actually. I'm a 22-year-old college student, and I just wanted to say that you are an absolute inspiration to me as a young conservative. And I've been reading your book, Men in Black, and it really has been eye-opening concerning the importance of the Supreme Court.
Well, thank you, my friend. You see, this battle over Sessions, that's just a warm-up act when it comes to the Supreme Court. So I just hope everybody listening understands that this election is just the beginning. It's just the beginning because the left has no intention of honoring the results of the election. That's the hypocrisy and the joke. When Trump said, I'll see, you know, depending on the results where I stand, and they flipped out. And the fact of the matter is, whatever the results, they reject any time we win, period. I've seen it over and over and over again. They are of a totalitarian mindset. We have our fools in the Senate who say, well, we've got to hold up to that filibuster rule. Schumer's the guy who broke the filibuster rule. Schumer's the guy who used it against judicial nominations. Schumer needs to be broken. Thank you for your call, David. He needs to be broken. He needs to be crushed. He needs to be beaten politically. In other words, all roads to victory go through Schumer's office. As far as I'm concerned, time to teach that jerk a lesson. I'll be right back. Now, they also attacked General Mike Flynn. Hat-tip newsbusters. We've got the Today Show, Good Morning America, Today Show, The View, CNN, MSLSD. Go.
But Lieutenant General Flynn is not without controversy. He recently raised eyebrows among those in the military community who usually stay out of politics.
It is a key pick, and it is not without controversy.
A controversial figure, Flynn roused support at the Republican National Convention with the infamous "Lock her up" chant against Hillary Clinton.
Call this divisive might be understating the case. If you even talk to Republicans on Capitol Hill, this is a selection they're very uncomfortable with.
His national security advisor is General Michael Flynn, an outspoken anti-Islamist with close ties to Vladimir Putin.
I've talked to senior military officials who compliment him on his judgment and his work in intelligence, but who also think that he Mike Flynn will appeal to Trump's darker impulses.
Mike Flynn, I mean, it's not really just controversial comments about Islam. It's outright offensive. I mean, he's dismissed the whole religion as a political ideology.
At one point or another, they've often said that he's a hothead, somebody who does not like to be disagreed with, who will often try to remove those who disagree with him and replace them with sycophants.
That must be Barack Obama. Listen how sleazy this is. Every one of you listening could not serve in your government. Every one of you listening. This is what they would do to you. Based on your opinions and the distortion of your opinions and the distortion of your entire career. Here we have a heroic man. A man of enormous accomplishment. He went up through the ranks. He's a general. And an excellent general. And he dared to speak out about what was going on. He dared to speak out about our policy toward ISIS and this administration and on and on. So they are out to destroy him. They are out to destroy Jeff Sessions. They even started with this guy Pompeo, who's one of them in the House. Also comes out of the Tea Party movement. You see, we are not allowed to have representation in our government. And I am telling you, Sessions, Flynn, Pompeo, they reflect your principles. They are honorable principles. They believe in national security. They believe in equality before the law. They believe in justice. They believe in individualism. They believe in the Constitution. They believe in their country. And for that, they're trashed. Have you heard anything even close to this when it comes to Keith Ellison? You haven't heard a damn thing. Have you heard anything even close to this when it comes to that sleazeball Chuck Schumer? So all of a sudden, Donald Trump is surrounding himself with racists and anti-Semites. They just do it over and over again. They did it in the campaign. Now they do it now. Incredible. This is the fraud, phony media. We know who you are, Kristen Welker. Well, I don't really, but you know what I mean. Savannah Guthrie, Martha Raddatz, Steve Kornacki, if that is your name. Whoopi Goldberg, you dicks. David Gregory, wasn't he fired from something? Jim, whatever the hell your name is. Katie Tur, we know who you are. Haley Jackson, George Stephanopoulos, you're a joke. You're a gaggle of buffoons. And so here we are, ladies and gentlemen. But I want the Trump team to understand something. If this is the kind of selection process, if these are the kinds of people you're going to select, keep it up. It's outstanding. Keep it up. It's outstanding. The media hate you. The Democrats hate you. Academia hates you. Hollywood hates you. They're out to destroy you. You need to build your administration. You need to muscle it up with solid people. Because they're all going to come under attack one way or another, one day or another. Because the real target here is not Jeff Sessions or General Flynn or Mike Pompeo. It's Trump. I saw this for 8 years in the Reagan administration. The Bush people saw it in their administration. That's what it's about. Jeff Sessions. Jeff Sessions. If the Republicans hold firm in the Senate, he will be confirmed. If they try to filibuster him, then the burden will be upon Mr. McConnell to yank the filibuster rule the same way Harry Reid yanked it, the same way Chuck Schumer yanked it, and tell that Orrin Hatch to grow a spine, you jerk. That's correct. This administration needs to be, they need to appoint their people. Not the people Chuck Schumer wants, or these buffoons in the media. You notice, did any of Barack Obama's appointees get this kind of attack? Any of them? No, none of them. Because the media suck. See, we don't just take Friday off and Or come in here and kick our feet up and talk about picadillos. Here we are, full speed ahead. Put on the gas pedal, baby. I'm Mark Levin. Our number, 877-381-3811. The lines are full, but as soon as you hear me take a call, then you can speed dial, 877-381-3811. So the attacks on our friend Senator Jeff Sessions. We put together a little montage, right, Mr. Producer? Whoopi Goldberg, Steve Kornacki, who the hell is that? The Today Show. Martha Raddatz, I know who the hell that is. George Stephanopoulos, oh, the Clinton hatchet man. Haley Jackson, never heard of her. MSLSD. Oh, take a listen. Cut 2, go.
His attorney general is Jeff Sessions, an anti-immigration senator whose alleged racist statements cost him a federal judgeship.
He is a lightning rod because of past statements, racial statements, and he actually went before the Senate 30 years ago for confirmation, and they rejected him. So that controversy would come right back if he got nominated.
But critics immediately pointing to Sessions' past allegations of racist behavior. One lawyer he worked with said the senator called him boy and told him to be careful what you say to white folks. Sessions denied the allegations.
Another friend of his, Senator Sessions, we talked about those allegations of racism that cost him a federal judgeship 20 years ago. He served in the Senate for 20 years. Since then...
First was 30 years ago, you idiot. All right, go ahead.
How serious will those charges be in his confirmation if he is indeed chosen?
He's got a lot of baggage. I mean, 30 years ago, he wasn't able to get confirmed for a federal district judgeship because of concerns about some of these allegations of racist remarks, etc.
Was a circuit judgeship, but who's counting? Look what they do to a guy or a gal. Look what they do to this guy. I want you to keep something in mind. Look what they did to Robert Bork with that Kennedy speech on the Senate floor as soon as he was nominated. Look what they did to Clarence Thomas, that disgusting trial they put him through with allegations and nonsense. Look what they tried to do to Ed Meese. Look what they tried to do to Ronald Reagan. Look what they did to Scooter Libby. Just on and on and on down the list. These are good men and women. These are good people. Sessions isn't a racist. They want him to be a racist. They wish he was a racist. No, he's not a racist. And nor is he a friend of the Muslim Brotherhood or CARE or Farrakhan either. Let's go back to the calls, shall we? Yes, we can. Richard, Louisville, Kentucky, the great WHAS country. That's a big blowtorch, 50,000 watts. How are you, sir?
Just fine, Mark. I'm a union member, been with my local for 44 years. I voted Republican this time, and not only did we win, of course, the White House, Senate, and the House, here in Kentucky, we now control the governorship, the Senate, and the House. The House...
Whoa, stop right there. I don't think people around the country realize how amazing that is.
Sir, not only did we win the House here in Kentucky, it was almost 100 years the last time Republicans controlled the House here in Kentucky. But my call
yes, sir.
is after such a resounding defeat by the Democrats, their next move is to go further left with this Keith Ellison guy. Now, money comes out of my pocket that goes to my union. Now, I don't have any say-so over what they do with it politically, but I can't imagine that Chuck Schumer and the gang give a crap what I think by moving further to the left.
Nope, now, you're exactly right.
I'm going to call my union and tell them in no uncertain terms that I do not want money to go to Keith Ellison or Chuck Schumer, that they do not represent me. I'm a blue-collar worker. We left you, and you have just now, by you going with Keith Ellison, you have told me that you don't want me anymore. And I'm sick of it.
I'm going to tell you something, Richard. Do you know I'm a member of a union, too? Did you know that?
No, sir.
I can't work if I'm not a member of the union. What the hell? The Screen Actors Guild. You believe that? These guys in Hollywood, I'm members with those fools. The fact of the matter is this. We need men and women who are rank-and-file union members to rise up, not in a violent way, but to rise up and challenge their leadership and tell them enough is enough. This damn Democrat Party's gone off the rails, and it's going to stay off the rails. With Keith Ellison, is there any more radical nut job in the United States Congress, Richard?
There's not. Mark, thank you so much. I started listening to you in 2015.
Oh, man.
You have educated me, and thank you so much.
No, don't go. I want to give you a CRTV. Can you hang on, Richard?
Yes, sir.
And thank you, man. I appreciate it. Can I ask you what you do? What kind of work you do? Pipe fitter. Man, that's hard work.
Very hard. And I sweat and blood, and now they want to give money to him? I don't think so. I don't think so.
And we need more pipes here, like oil pipelines. That would help, too.
Yes, let's build.
All right, Richard. Don't hang up, and God bless you, my friend. Let's make sure, Charlie, he gets CRTV annual subscription. That's the problem. The Democrat Party is so whacked out. It just is. It's so whacked out. You know, the Republicans have even a bigger opportunity here. They really do. And I hope President-elect Trump continues to nominate solid people. He does not have to bend for this. He does not have to give in to these people. And let me tell you something else. It really, from their perspective on the left, doesn't even matter who he nominates, unless it's one of them. Because they want to humiliate. They want to character assassinate. They want to smear. They want to set his agenda back. That's what they want to do. It's up to you and me to say enough of this crap, Schumer. Let's go to Daniel. Taylor, Pennsylvania, the great WTRW. How are you, sir?
Hey, Mark. I'll be honest with you. I'm liberal on the social issues, but I always listen to your show because I think you're a great defender of free market capitalism, and which has driven all the wealth and all the great things we have in this country. I liked how you began the show with you talked about the dangers of protectionism, and you talked about how the Farm Bill led to the Great Depression. What I want to ask you is how can you justify supporting Mr. Trump's policies when he advocates for that same kind of protectionism?
I don't support that policy with him. In fact, I have been vocal against this for 18 months?
Yes.
But as I explained, Daniel, during the course of the election, my nominee didn't win. My Republican in the primary didn't win. So what am I supposed to do? Vote for a thoroughly corrupt, a thoroughly leftist individual because I can't get everything that I want?
Yeah, it's true. I think a lot of people on the left had to make that difficult.
Meanwhile, Hillary Clinton would never have nominated Jeff Sessions or Mike Pompeo or Mike Flynn.
Mm-hmm.
So, to me, as I started to explain at the end of the summer, the beginning of September, when you really look at it, it comes down to it, I didn't have any problem voting for Trump to defeat Hillary. None.
I just hope
that doesn't mean I'm going to surrender on the issues. You ought to see one of these guys on Fox. He's supposed to be a free market capitalist. I don't even think he knows what the hell free market capitalism is. No. I'm not going to get into a cult of personality. That ain't going to happen here. I'm not a groupie. Never have been and never will be. And I believe this audience and this program did a lot to move Trump to the right, to get him to make promises about conservative issues to the extent that we could. But this issue of trade, he and I obviously disagree. But he's the president-elect. I'm a radio host.
I think he's I don't.
Who did you vote for, Daniel?
I think it's a reason. Well, I voted for Hillary, but I voted because it gets.
Well, then you don't believe in free market capitalism.
No. Well, that's not that. You voted for Trump, even though he's a protectionist.
No, but so is Hillary, and she's also a crony capitalist. Now, hold on now. But he wants to slash taxes. He wants to slash regulations. Hillary doesn't want to slash taxes. She wanted an increase of $1.5 trillion. She wanted to even massively increase more regulations. You say you're a free market capitalist. She has embraced this fraud, climate change, man-made climate change for the purpose of further destroying the economy. She wanted to give out free college and on and on and on. Trump isn't perfect, but Hillary is thoroughly imperfect. You understand the difference?
Yes, I wish.
So you blew your vote. You screwed it up.
I wish my political system gave me.
All right, look, what do you mean you wish? Let's be grown-ups now. This is where we were, and you voted the wrong way. All right, my friend, thank you for your call. Let's take another call. Mike, Baltimore, Maryland, the great WCBM. Go.
Hi, sir. I'll be brief. The reason I wanted to call was I was very uninformed and I didn't really know a lot about politics. And I've begun to listen to your show, several months ago. And I just wanted to thank you personally for really making a difference in my life with your show and the substance that you have. And I just wanted to take some time out to really just to say what a good job I think you're doing and how you've helped me really learn a lot about what's going on in the world today and not just relying on the local news stations.
Well, you're very, very kind, Mike. What do you do, may I ask?
I deliver food.
Really? What kind of food?
Delivery guy.
Pizza?
Italian.
Let me ask you a question now that I have you, seriously. Do people ever order pizza without cheese because they're lactose intolerant like me?
Yes.
So it's not that weird, right?
No.
It's unusual, but not weird, right?
Correct. Yeah, it happens.
Yeah. I love pizza. I wish I could eat the cheese. Even when I take the damn capsule, I can't handle it. But, all right, I was just curious. Mike, it's a pleasure to hear from you, buddy. By the way, Mike, would you like a 1-year subscription to Conservative Review TV?
I would love it. I really would.
All right, man. Don't hang up. I appreciate it. I'm enjoying these calls, and now I'm really going to get a kick out of it. We got my man Eddie, Orange County, California, on the Mark Levin app. Eddie, go, baby!
My main man, my friend, and my twin, the great educator, indeed, Mark Levin. Mark, excellent show. You're on fire as usual. Allow me to quickly pour some gasoline on if you don't mind.
Oh, yes, sir.
I was concerned that the left was going to cheat just enough to win. But by the grace of God and my fellow Americans rose up and said, to use my very best English, now we're not going to do this no more. We had enough. Time to start getting some of our liberty back. About that time. So Milhouse can take a hike and take the pantsuit with him. Now, teacher, I haven't spoken with you for the past 6 weeks. Why? Because I've been out here trying to save my country. It has been an all-out, full-blown, knockdown, verbal warfare at the grassroots level against the left. I mean, things that were being said, Mark, it was rude, crude, disrespectful, and outright wrong to say to another human being. Yeah, and I meant every single word of it, too. No shame here. Teacher, I spoke the truth, as Levinology has taught me. I told no lies. I'm a true Levinian. My mother always told me to be honest, and I was. I just went about it in a brutal way, Mark, because it keeps me regular. You know that also, don't you?
Eddie, I love you, baby. You are unbelievable.
Thank you, Mark. Hey, Mark, have a happy Thanksgiving. This is the time of the year where we give thanks, so I just want to say to you, Mark, thanks, my brother. I appreciate you.
And same to you, man. God bless you. It's my man, Eddie. He is great. I'll be right back. Let us continue. Kevin, Leesburg, Virginia, the great WMAL. Go.
Hello, Mark. How are you?
I'm all right, Kevin. How are you, sir?
I'm just great. I'm a long-time listener to your show and first-time caller. I don't know if you remember me or not, but a while back you were at your office at the Landmark Legal Foundation. I actually delivered a package to you. And
that's several years ago, isn't it?
It's been, it could have been. It's been a while back, and I was so starstruck by you. I just, I didn't want to really bother you in public, but I told the call screener, the other gentleman that called that was a union member, I wholeheartedly agree with him, and I just wanted to thank you for being a voice of sanity in the sea of liberals that I work with, and I thoroughly enjoy listening to your show every day on my way home. After listening to all of their stuff, it really annoys me to no end to know the things that the money that comes out of my pocket are going to support.
Now, you're a UPS guy?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, you guys work hard. You really do. I mean, I see you guys, especially this time of year when you're running and running. You got package after package after package.
Yeah.
So I hope I was polite. Did I meet you?
Yes, you sure did. You actually signed for the package I had for you.
All right. Well, that happens. Well, Kevin, God bless you, man, and have a wonderful Thanksgiving. Hey, Kevin, do you have CRTV?
No, I don't yet.
Would you watch it?
Oh, my gosh, yes. Yes, I certainly would.
Don't hang up. I want to get you a subscription for a year, so don't hang up. CRTV to my man Kevin there. Thanksgiving's coming up. I love Thanksgiving. Do you love Thanksgiving? Let's continue. Stan, Salito, Texas, Sirius Satellite, go.
Hello, Mr. Levin. It is
yes,
such
sir.
an honor to speak with you.
Thank you.
I wanted to tell you, you are a beacon of intelligence in a sea of stupidity. And it is always so good to hear your words of wisdom. I just wanted to speak briefly. You know, my short history is my parents were raised in New Mexico in the Depression, and my dad was a Marine and went all the way to Japan in World War II, and they raised 5 kids. I'm the last, and we all were college educated but one. And I want such good things for my kids, and I don't have grandkids yet, but I have 4 kids, and I've got 2 of them through college, and one's in college, and one is a senior this year. And I've seen in my lifetime since I graduated high school and college, the opportunities completely just dry up in this country. Our nation humiliated and just brought to the brink of destruction. And I want to know, what should we do as Americans to make a difference for our kids and grandkids? And I'm not talking about just voting. I'm talking about, you know, what do we have to do to help make this country great again?
Well, one of the things I want to encourage people to do, and we're kind of taking the point on this, and I'm going to continue to do it, is Convention of States. I think in the end this is the right recourse and fundamentally the only recourse. So if you'll Google or Bing Convention of States, one of the premier organizations working on this is Mark Meckler's group, Tom Coburn, Mike Farris, and so forth. That would be my suggestion to all of you who want to get involved, something that's crucially important. I'll be right back. Now, by the way, I want to hit this issue before the hour's out. Ford is keeping its plant open that produces the Lincoln. In other words, it's not moving it to Mexico. It was never moving it to Mexico. Why must people in my business and on TV distort this stuff? When Donald Trump has victories, we will point them out and we will applaud them. But Ford did this on its own. And by the way, I don't believe in a strongman president managing every business in this country, deciding where they should go, where they should do. What the hell is that? That's Venezuela. But you know my views on that. I believe in this weird thing called liberty. But in any event, and by the way, we have 12 million people in this country who rely on trade. And for all the geniuses out there, all the 22, 24-year-olds who actually think they understand the economy, and I don't mean you folks, I mean the ones with microphones and cameras in their faces. One more time. Globalism has nothing to do with commerce. Hello, listen. Globalism has to do with sovereignty. That is, we do not believe in global government. We do believe in economic commerce. One more time. We don't believe in global government that attacks our constitutional system and sovereignty, that disenfranchises us. Politicians, elected or otherwise, have no authority to confer our liberty and our republic onto foreign governments, onto foreign institutions, or anything outside our constitutional construct. To do that is called globalism. Trade is not called globalism. Got it? I doubt it. Now, back on September 15th of this year, I thought I cleared this up. I'm hoping the new media and talk radio is will not now become just propagandists. I hope not. This is September 15, 2016. All right, so it's 2 months ago. Cut 8, go. Ford confirms that it's going to shift the manufacture of its Focus automobile to Mexico. Stop. And it's I'm live. Focus. Notice the word Focus, the product Focus. Notice it's not Lincoln. It's not the word Lincoln. It's not the product Lincoln. It's the Ford Focus, not the Lincoln. Now, why is that important? Because the chairman of Ford, who's a Ford, told Trump, we're going to continue to assemble, manufacture our Lincolns in the United States. So, in other words, there was no change. That's called a Lincoln, which is different than the Ford Focus. Go ahead. Cars to Mexico. And so they have this plant in Michigan, and the attack all day has been, look at this, they're firing Americans and moving their company, their production to Mexico. They're not firing anybody. They're keeping that plant open, and that plant will produce other cars. And as a matter of fact, as the company said, they have 85,000 American employees, up 28,000, or nearly 50% in the last 5 years alone. They have 8,800 employees in Mexican plants, and they're going to add 2,800. So the overwhelming majority of their employees are in America, and not one is going to be affected by any of this. And why are they moving this production? Why are they building this plant, I should say, in Mexico? Well, Ed Morrissey over at Hot Air points out that because Mexico is involved in all these free trade deals, the tariffs are lower, much lower. There's more free trade, and yes, wages are lower, but the vast majority of the savings is as a result of Mexico's free trade agreement. And so you see, ladies and gentlemen, it's me live. We need more free trade. Now, by free trade, I don't just mean with other countries. I mean, our own country is strangling our production, our assembly lines, our industries with unbelievably costly environmental rules that have as their purpose to put these plants out of business. What we used to call these smokestack factories. They want to put them out of business. You see, the people who run the EPA don't know what it's like in a coal mine. The people who run the EPA don't know anything about energy. They know everything about bureaucracy. It's an ideological movement. You don't respond to an ideological movement by shooting yourself in the temple and giving them aid and comfort with stupid policies. And so I heard some dingbat on TV, I think maybe radio, say that Trump saved 5,000 jobs because they didn't move the Lincoln production to Mexico. First of all, it's not 5,000 jobs, and secondly, they were never going to move it to Mexico. Oh, great. You know, it's too bad some of these hosts on our favorite cable network, Fox, brings in their favorite politicians in order to build them up after I knock them down. There's Rand Paul. Rand Paul looks to me like he's dressed like a character, like a John Travolta character there, Mr. Producer. No offense. But he's, they're trying to rehabilitate him there, I think. His outrageous slander and smear against John Bolton. I'm sorry John Bolton doesn't share the Code Pink foreign policy agenda. I'm sorry. Not really. I'm not sorry. He'd be a great Secretary of State. I don't know if he'll get it or what do I know? Certainly get the attention of our enemies, wouldn't it? Including China. No question about that. I'll be right back. I'm honestly starting to think I'm the last conservative, or among the last conservatives on radio. I really am. I'm listening to people. I'm watching this fool. I have to go to the jewelry channel during the breaks now. I can't watch this guy. Says I'm one of his mentors. No, I'm not. Not when he's such a suck-up that no matter what proposal comes out, he's going to back it up. He should be the press secretary. So now we all support a president forcing private concerns to conduct themselves in the way that he insists on. You know what we conservatives used to call that, Mr. Producer? Fascism. Now, I just explained this Ford thing, what a phony issue this is right now. These are the facts. There's no spin here. These are the facts. So why do people keep insisting otherwise? It's incredible to me. It's embarrassing. A so-called news cable channel. There's no news about it. Ford was not going to close that plant. And they've stuck to their guns, or they're not closing that plant. And they haven't fired a single person who works at the plant. They're expanding production by building the Ford Focus in Mexico. Now, if we have a problem with that, maybe we should look to the EPA and the Department of Transportation and a bunch of these clowns and reduce the regulations and the costs. Maybe the Labor Department. But if you're going to beat these businesses into submission, there's going to be less of them. There's going to be less production. And besides, that's not our system, is it? Well, maybe it is now. We got conservatives so-called cheering it on. If Obama did that, they wouldn't be cheering it on. What a bunch of frauds. I'll be right back. So according to Senator Rand Paul of Kentucky, Mr. Constitution, Bob Corker's a much more reasonable choice than the others being proposed for Secretary of State, because he'd be a real diplomat, and he knows a lot of these leaders, and his job, after all, isn't to be a warmonger. That goes over at the Defense Department. So he's more reasonable, Bob Corker? Would that be the Bob Corker who eviscerated the treaty clause of the Constitution? Is Rand Paul familiar with the treaty clause of the Constitution? Did he vote to uphold the treaty clause in the Constitution? I don't believe he did. I know Tom Cotton did. So it's more reasonable to eviscerate the treaty clause of the Constitution, where you need 2/3 of the senators present to ratify a treaty, where they turned it around, where you needed a supermajority of the senators to stop Obama? That's reasonable? And now that the Iranians have $150 billion and are arming up on the conventional weapons side, of course, but also on the nuclear side, he says there's no evidence of that. Of course there's evidence of that. Does he have access to Google? Is he familiar with the side agreements that took place, where there were violations even in advance of the deal, so they did the side agreement so they could get around it? Is he familiar with that? But you see, Bob Corker's more reasonable, because Bob Corker helped create the conditions that allowed the Iran deal to be signed. He threw in with Obama, and then at the end he pretended that he objected to this. So Rand Paul thinks that's reasonable. Eviscerating the Constitution, the role of the Senate, which was so crucial when it comes to treaty making, that's reasonable. You see, ladies and gentlemen, appeasement has a price, and it's a dire price. Appeasement to the Iranians when they get their ICBMs and their nuclear warheads. They're the warmongers, Mr. Paul, not John Bolton. And when they arm up, and maybe you'll be out of the Senate, Obama will be long gone, I want to hear again how Bob Corker was reasonable. Because you appeasers, you isolationists, you're the ones who get people killed. Now, that is not to say that I'm one of these radical interventionists. I reject that, too. That's not the choice between John McCain and Rand Paul and Bob Corker. That's not the choice. Because I'm neither, and most of you are neither, too. You don't intervene everywhere, but on the other hand, you don't surrender everywhere either. And under no condition do you rewrite the Constitution by cutting a deal with somebody like Obama and ripping out of the Constitution the treaty clause. And then Mr. Constitution Rand Paul tells me that the man responsible for that in the Senate is reasonable. And he gets on with his friend on the Fox News channel, to try and rehabilitate himself. Well, he didn't. Especially not with that mock, what is that shirt? Whatever it was. All right, Mark. It's okay. It's okay. It's all right. Stan, Kilgore, Texas. The great KTBV. Go.
Yeah, I would like to put in perspective how much $1 trillion is. They just found a new oil reserve in Texas.
The biggest one they've ever found.
Biggest one they've ever found, supposed to be able to power the United States for the next 30 years, and they estimate the value of it at $900 billion, which is not even $1 trillion, which is not even a 20th of our debt.
And so your point is this massive oil field that they found, which is valued at under $1 trillion, even if they took every penny out of that, they wouldn't be able to fund this new infrastructure proposal that the Jacksonian agrarian nationalist populists are suggesting.
That's correct.
And so how do we pay for all this stuff on top of the massive debt that we have already?
What scares me is that the people I've talked to don't think we ever have to pay the debt off.
Well, unfortunately, a lot of them are in high office. Nah, you're right. And that's the thing that's going to suck the lifeblood out of this country, too. All right, Stan, good call. I appreciate it, my friend. Let's go to Lou, Milford, Connecticut. How are you on the Levin app? Our buddy Lou. Go right ahead.
My radio hero, you made me laugh when you were talking about our friend from Kentucky looking like John Travolta. He looks like he's dressed from the movie Get Shorty.
It's a mock turtleneck. That's what it was. I said, whoa. Are those in? I'm glad, because I don't like wearing ties. I'll wear a mock turtleneck myself.
Last time I spoke to you was before the election, Comey 2.0, and my whole concern about the election, and I was so relieved that Hillary lost. You notice I didn't say that Trump won. That Hillary lost because we would never have...
Hold on, let me slow you down. If Trump keeps making appointments like this and loads up his cabinet with really, really solid people, I mean, I think we can say that we're glad about that, right?
No, so far so good, but some of the names are frightening,
Well, Corker's the one that grabs my attention, as you well know.
I'm glad that Sessions is lined up for the Justice Department, because that was my major concern, Mark, that we would never have redress ever again, whether it be in the Supreme Court, whether it be with the EPA, the IR, that cesspool.
Well, just remember, he's nominated, or he's going to be nominated. He's not there yet, and they're going to put up a big fight. You want to know why? They want to control the Department of Justice. They want to dirty up this administration in the fight. They want to dirty up Trump. And they're going to try and get him to buckle, to start nominating people who are squishes. That's what they're up to.
The fight's not over. Just because the election was won doesn't mean the fight's over. Because
it's the beginning. It's the first inning.
Exactly. But the out-of-control Justice Department was the most frightening thing in the last few years. I mean, you look at this recent indictment of the Eric Garner cop, Officer Pantaleo. You look at the Sheriff Joe Arpaio being indicted. These are just vindictive moves, and I'm looking for an end to that madness of the Justice.
Look at D'Souza. Even though it was the U.S. Attorney's Office, the Attorney General could have put an end to that.
Yeah,
outrageous.
Well, they declined to indict. I mean, he went through the process.
All right, my friend. Lou, appreciate your call. So now we're going to have a conga line of every left-wing hack job on every cable show, on all your Sunday shows. I don't watch the Sunday shows. Mr. Producer has to do that. I can't I can't stand it. Trashing Jeff Sessions as a racist. Just outrageous. Trashing Mike Flynn as anti-Muslim. Just outrageous. It's disgusting. And they just repeat the same phony talking points over and over and over again. And that's how they do it, over and over. The talking points have been handed out. They're coordinating with the Schumers of the world. They have their phony front groups doing the same, and they're all over TV and all over the media. I got to take a break. I'll be right back. Fred, Las Vegas, Nevada, the great KDWN, K-Dawn. Sorry, go right ahead.
Yeah, Mark, hope you're doing real good. And I just wanted to say thank you for being a lighthouse during a major storm.
Oh, you're very kind. Thank you.
You have basically opened my eyes to what it means to be a conservative. When I joined the military back in the early 70s, or mid-70s, I always considered myself a Republican. And I just stayed that way until like 2.5 years ago when I started listening to you. And I basically changed to where I don't consider myself a Republican anymore. I consider myself a conservative. And it's all due to you.
Well, you're very, very kind. I'll tell you what. I appreciate your service. I appreciate that. How would you like CRTV, a 1-year subscription?
Oh, that'd be fantastic, Mark.
Well, don't hang up, and thank you for your service. And we have a wonderful affiliate in Las Vegas, KDWN, KDWN, Powerhouse. And it's a great honor to be there, too. And I got to get back to Las Vegas. You know what? When my next book comes out in 400 years or whenever it is, and I'm working very, very hard on it, it's just a slow process for me. And because I actually write it, I think I'd like to go to Las Vegas. I'd like to go to Las Vegas, maybe Dallas. Just spread it around a little bit. Reagan Library, of course. Ladies and gentlemen, every Friday, Ray Charles America in honor of you. The week is officially over. The weekend begins right now. We salute our armed forces, police officers, firefighters, and emergency personnel. Good night, Spritey. Good night, Griffey. Good night, Pepsi. Good night, Smokey. And good night, America. Get Al-Qaeda. Get the Taliban. Get ISIS. Get all those subhuman cockroaches. And I will see you on Levin TV in 2 minutes. And I'll see you on the radio on Monday. God bless you. What do you think about this new nationalism? Do you think it's new? What does it mean? Does it mean putting America first, this new nationalism? Is that what it means? Does it, in fact, put America first? Has this new nationalism been tried before as new nationalism? It very much has. You interested in hearing about it? Let me tell you a little bit about this. The phrase new nationalism was actually coined by Theodore Roosevelt in a speech he gave in Kansas on September 1, 1910. And in that speech, Theodore Roosevelt, a Republican, later to become a Progressive Party candidate, in essence denounced the Declaration of Independence and embraced the new nationalism. Now, what was involved in this new nationalism? He rejected the American heritage in many respects, the limitations placed on the federal government, and he argued for a powerful central government that would take care of the general welfare of the people. And he made the case in this speech, this new nationalism speech on September 1, 1910, a quintessential, aggressive, progressive speech. This is a speech, ladies and gentlemen, that the left venerates. In fact, Barack Obama, just a few years ago, visited the exact site where Theodore Roosevelt gave this speech. He gave his own speech. And was, of course, extremely complimentary of Roosevelt in his speech. And Roosevelt thought that the general welfare of the people, the health of the people, the education of the people, basic jobs and wages and so forth should be determined by the federal government. And I can elaborate on that at another time. The Republican Party was the Progressive Party. The Democrat Party became the Progressive Party. you had two progressive-era parties. The Republican Party under Theodore Roosevelt, then William Howard Taft, less so but still, and then, of course, followed by Woodrow Wilson, who took the Democrat Party to the hard left in what's known as the Progressive Era. Now, before Theodore Roosevelt and Taft and Wilson, there were a few decades of what was called the populism era. And there was actually a political party, you may recall I mentioned this a couple months ago, called the People's Party. The People's Party was a populist party. It would become, in effect, a branch of the progressive movement, and it was eventually devoured by the progressive movement. These terms, populism, nationalism, progressivism, are not the same as Americanism. Americanism is the embrace of our founding principles. Americanism is the embrace of our Declaration of Independence and our Constitution. Americanism is the embrace of free market capitalism, not crony capitalism. But for free market capitalism, I need to say, there wouldn't be a great middle class in this country. But for free market capitalism, we could have gone the way of Russia or these other communist regimes, the so-called proletariat rising up. But it's because of free market capitalism. People only look on the wage side when it comes to assembly lines during that period. What they ought to realize is, as a result of free market capitalism, we got electricity in every home, lights, heat, eventually air conditioning. Free market capitalism gave birth to new forms of energy, which massively increased the lifestyles, improved the lifestyles for almost all Americans. It made possible everything that runs on fossil fuels, including automobiles, engines, things we take for granted. It made possible the production and the refinement of steel. In other words, it created this great explosion of industrial America, making us the greatest, most powerful economic force on the face of the earth and eventually military force on the face of the earth. That's what free market capitalism gave us. The progressives are an offshoot of the European socialists. Now look, there's 15,000 types of socialism. It doesn't much matter to me. It's a mentality. The Europeans believed, first of all, the Europeans never had a Declaration of Independence. They had their own history to deal with, their monarchies, feudalism, and so forth and so on. We never had that in America. We were a clean slate. In many ways, that's how we were able to do what we did. Now, when our framers of the Constitution met in Philadelphia, they didn't sit there and think, let us have the most powerful central government we can to regulate trade. We have a commerce clause in our Constitution, the purpose of which is to promote commerce and trade between and among the states and between and among countries, because we were getting killed with protectionism state to state and our country to other countries. We couldn't compete. The purpose of the Commerce Clause is not anti-commerce. It's not for big government. Now, it's true they had tariffs at the time after the Constitution was adopted because they didn't have an income tax. And in part, those tariffs were necessary to fund the federal government. But they weren't there for the purpose of empowering far-off Washington bureaucrats and politicians to manipulate the economy. Because whether of the left or the pseudo-right, how are they going to manipulate it? They don't even know enough about everything that takes place on the shop floor or in somebody's basement when they're producing something, or on and on and on. All right. Back to this progressive era. So these words, nationalism, populism, progressive, they've been around a very, very long time. a very long time. They gave us in 1909 the 16th Amendment, the Income Tax Amendment, the Federal Income Tax Amendment. Let's get the rich. Let's get American companies so they can pay their fair share. And now you know where your federal income tax comes from. It gave us the 17th Amendment in 1912. In the name of populism, we get to elect our senators directly. It's very appealing. But we're not supposed to be a pure democracy. We're not supposed to be a populist society. We're supposed to be a republic. Two of the worst ideas during the Progressive era, the 16th and 17th Amendments, pushed by Republicans. Theodore Roosevelt and William Howard Taft. Both parties strongly supported it. They went through very, very quickly. Now, let's move along. I'm missing gaps. There's so much more to get into, and I will one day, but not now. I'm just giving you a taste of this. We have a President Herbert Hoover. President Herbert Hoover was a very, very successful businessman. And he believed he could manage the economy. And he was very, very concerned about free market capitalism. He was very concerned about the loss of American jobs, the loss of American industry, and so forth. In 1922, again, the progressive Republicans, the populist nationalist Republicans, controlled Congress. And they passed the Fordney-McCumber tariff. Covered all agricultural imports. Thus began trade wars. Other countries don't sit back and watch this. Our farmers were severely economically affected by this. Rather than protecting our farmers couldn't sell into foreign markets, which they needed to do. And so, in a short period of time, there was a recession. I call it a soft depression. Smoot-Hawley, you've heard of that, right? In 1930. Smoot-Hawley, again, Republicans, put in place tariffs on over 20,000 imported products, which resulted in a worldwide tariff war. Now, in virtually every industry, ironically enough, in the automobile industry in particular, we couldn't sell these products, so many products, overseas. We couldn't sell them overseas. The countries responded to us, and many of them ganged up against us. Of course, you had the 1929 stock market crash. So they were trying to fix these things, save American jobs, stop them from going overseas. And they destroyed American jobs and farmers and businesses. And, of course, the federal government wasn't getting the revenue it needed, given what had taken place. So what happened? Now that we had a federal income tax, what did they do? Well, the Revenue Act of 1932. It increased the personal income tax dramatically. Higher income taxes increased the standard rate from 1.5 to 5%. In some cases to 8%. On top of that, it placed a large surtax on higher income earners, leading to a total tax rate, depending on your income, from 25 to 63%. It massively increased the corporate income tax, along with several taxes on other forms of income and wealth. And what did that do? It further killed the economy. And the Republicans did what the Democrats would later do. They panicked, given what they had done to the economy. You see, there was a small New Deal before there was the big New Deal under Hoover. He put in place the Reconstruction Finance Corporation to lend money to banks. The Home Loan Bank, so the government can help the construction sector. Direct loans to state governments for spending on relief, for infrastructure. A Public Works Administration that would better coordinate federal public works and state public works for government-created jobs for the unemployed. Sound familiar? This is before we even get to Franklin Roosevelt and the New Deal. This was populism, nationalism, progressivism. I'm not done. I'll be right back. So we went from the new, or the little New Deal under Hoover to the really big New Deal under Franklin Roosevelt. He raised taxes to 90%. He created the Civilian Conservation Corps, the Civil Works Administration, the National Industrial Recovery Act, Public Works Administration. They took over a huge percentage of the gross domestic product. They had wage and price controls throughout all industries. They even created trust councils that would oversee the grouping of various industries and regulate them, just to make sure people weren't quote-unquote ripped off. We had double-digit unemployment. So a bad recession was turned into a depression, which was turned into a horrendous depression that lasted a decade. There have been study after study that said the government did exactly the wrong thing. You had double-digit unemployment for years. I'm talking about 19%, 23%, and so forth and so on. No matter how many taxes were raised, no matter how many programs were put in place, no matter how much redistribution of wealth there was, no matter how powerful the central government got, the people were miserable, and they were suffering. More when I return. Why am I talking about all this? Because these terms are being thrown around by lots of people who don't quite comprehend the history behind them. We can move into the Nixon period. We had wage and price controls that were set in place in 1971 to try and attack inflation. But what did wage and price controls do? Terrible dislocation of markets. And when they were lifted, of course, they spun out of control. Massive spending, massive redistribution of wealth. And now Donald Trump is proposing $1 trillion in infrastructure spending, twice as much as Hillary Clinton did, and they said this is going to create jobs and for the middle class, for union workers and so forth and so on. I need to ask you folks this. How many more times are we going to do this? How many more times are we going to take money out of the private sector to fund some mastermind's idea about how to create jobs? The great power of the American economy was not created by government or tariffs or protectionism or progressivism or populism or nationalism. It was created by Americanism, by Americans. That's how it works. And economies go through evolutions. There was the horse and buggy, now there's the car. There was whale blubber that was used to light lanterns, now we have electricity. Are we supposed to kill economic progress and evolution that improves lifestyles for the vast majority of Americans? Any country would kill to have the lifestyle that we have in this country. You wouldn't know it listening to the politicians. And yet it is they, with their government departments, their government agencies. 80,000 pages of regulations this year and last year and the year before. It is they who destroy American jobs. It is they who create economic dislocation. Man is imperfect. That means all of us together are imperfect. But if I make a mistake or you make a mistake, well, then I might feel it and 25 other people may feel it. But if I'm making these decisions for all of society, for the entire economy, and I happen to get elected to office, so I have the power to do it, theoretically, then any decisions or mistakes I made impact everybody. That's why you do not want concentrated control, centralized control of decision-making. What we lack is more economic competition because of government plays favors, and through its tax schemes and so forth and so on. Not less. Not less. Our economy needs to be unleashed. Not more government spending. Been doing government spending for a century. $1 trillion over 10 years? That is a massive expense, and yet, in the big scheme of things, when you look at our GDP, it's a drop in the bucket. So on the one hand, it bloats federal spending and the federal debt. On the other hand, the economy is so big it's of minimal consequence. So whether these ideas come from Theodore Roosevelt, or William Howard Taft, or Herbert Hoover, or Franklin Roosevelt, whether these ideas come from Lyndon Johnson, Jimmy Carter, Bill Clinton, Barack Obama, and yes, Donald Trump, they're the same worn-over ideas that do not work. That do not work. That's why we believe in individualism, capitalism, constitutionalism. That's Americanism. Now, people romanticize this Jacksonian period. It wasn't a very good period, you know. First of all, ironically, people who want to compare Trump to Jackson. Jackson, in his first race for the presidency, won the popular vote and lost the Electoral College vote. Did you know that, Mr. Producer? He won the popular vote, like Hillary Clinton, but lost to John Quincy Adams, because John Quincy Adams won the Electoral College vote. In this election, Trump won the Electoral College vote and Hillary Clinton won the popular vote. Andrew Jackson had among his top priorities eliminating the federal debt. And he did. How does spending $1 trillion on top of a $20 trillion fiscal operating debt and a $200 trillion unfunded liability debt come anywhere close to Jackson's thinking on this sort of thing? And it's been tried a zillion times, but we're going to do it again? With the same outcome? We're going to keep banging our heads against the wall? Sounds good, I know, but it's $1 trillion. Flush down the toilet, essentially. And this centralized government that gets to make all these decisions. Jacksonian democracy, as it came to be called, was not about centralized federal government. It was a rejection of the increasingly centralized decisions coming out of the federal government. But we need to be blunt, too. In the 1820s, moving into the 1830s, if you still owned slaves, you were in a distinct minority. I'm not talking about the 1700s and 1776, I'm talking about the 1820s. 1820, 1828, into the 1830s. Jackson was a slave owner, and he was a brutal slave owner. But a lot was going on at the time. There were a lot of tensions. There were a lot of battles going on between, quote-unquote, the mercantilists, the elitists on the East Coast and some of the other areas of the country, the agrarians, slave owners, non-slave owners, cotton growers, tobacco growers. And so there were a lot of tensions that were taking place. The tensions, of course, that would eventually lead to the Civil War. Jacksonian democracy was an attempt to create a populist revolt against what was taking place. That's why when you hear these guys talk about Jacksonian democracy and agrarianism and nationalism and populism, that's what they're talking about. Again, it's nothing new. It's taken place before. But this was, in the end, very destructive. Jackson got rid of the national debt, all right, and he did it so quickly that what happened was his vice president, who became his successor as president, Martin Van Buren, inherited what became, soon after he was elected president, the worst depression in American history. By far the worst depression in American history. The collapse of the banks, the collapse of everything. You see, ladies and gentlemen, these notions of populism, nationalism, progressivism, they're antithetical to republicanism. The reason our Constitution is structured the way it's structured is to prevent mobocracy and to prevent despotism by one or by an oligarchy. It's a beautiful system. It is an unbelievable system of checks and balances, of limited powers to secure the unalienable rights for the individual. Now, under a Republican form of government, an individual has a responsibility to take care of his or her family, to work, to be scrappy. It's what they call rugged individualism. So let's look at today. To say today, when the government swallows up an enormous percentage of the gross domestic product, that is, of all goods and services produced in the private sector, an enormous percentage. It spends far in excess of what it collects with confiscatory taxes. The issue isn't what it regulates, the issue is what it doesn't regulate. To now say that we need $1 trillion infrastructure program, to now say that we need to further regulate our economy, which is heavily regulated, with over 12,000 tariffs. To now say that that's what the working men and women of America need. That's going to give us the shot in the arm to create American jobs, will be disastrous, as it always has been, as it always will be. Many of the people hawking this are not men and women of the assembly line. They're not men and women of agriculture. They're not men and women of the steel mills and the oil fields and so forth. They're bankers. They're developers. They're businessmen, like Hoover. Hoover didn't get dirt under his nails. Woodrow Wilson didn't get dirt under his nails. Franklin Roosevelt didn't get dirt under his nails. Theoreticians who have rejected or forgotten about what made this country great. That's the problem. Nationalism and populism has far more in common with statist progressivism than it can possibly have with constitutional conservatism. All right, enough of my lecturing. I'll be right back. Virtually every form of tyranny that I'm familiar with is always wrapped in populist arguments. For the people, we're representing the will of the people. That's how Mao represented his genocidal tyranny. That's how Lenin represented his genocidal tyranny. That's how Chavez, the Castro brothers, Mugabe, all the same thing. We the people, they wrap it up in populism. But populism is not republicanism. And that's the point. We're going to talk about this a hell of a lot more. The reason I love this, to do this program, love this format, and I'm so blessed to have millions of you out there. Where else could I do this? Where else could we do this? There's no way you could do it on cable TV. There's no way you could do it on network TV. We do it here on my radio program. We do it on Levin TV. We get into this stuff because it's important. People are throwing around phrases, and they're trying to encourage you to follow them. Some of them literally have no idea what they're talking about. They have 4 or 5 or 6 talking points. Many of them sound like liberals about class warfare. It's not about class warfare. It's about liberty. You want to live free or don't you? And when you live free, that means at times things get difficult. But let me tell you something. When you don't live free, it means all the time things are difficult. How many more experiments must humanity go through before it becomes obvious that our system, as set up by the framers, is and was the best? How many more human experiments do we have to have? How much more spending until it becomes clear that the government doesn't create jobs? Nobody spent more to quote-unquote create jobs than Franklin Roosevelt. Obama spends $100 billion on infrastructure. What did that do? Now Trump wants to spend $1 trillion. What will that do? We need to get our heads straight on this, folks. We really do. And I think most of us do. I don't care if you're blue collar or white collar. I don't even like those terms. Those are terms that some egghead came up with. Oh, white collar, blue collar. And they're usually leftist progressives. Or how about this one? Working people. Well, you're either working or you're not. What does that mean? What is that? Oh, working people. I work 20 hours a day. Am I not a working person? Whatever my income is, whatever your income is. Again, we talk like the progressive leftists. Oh, working people. Oh, blue collar, white collar. No, we're Americans. We're Americans. And the goal is to create and defend and improve on a society that has created the greatest amount of wealth for the most people, the greatest amount of freedom for the most people, despite and in fact due to our diversity. Our diversity of thinking, our diversity of acting, our diversity of producing. This is the other thing I meant to say, and then I'll get off this. All these populist movements, whether of the pseudo-right or the left, always demand egalitarianism. Material equality in different levels and different degrees. Somebody's earning too much. Somebody has too much wealth. Why should they have that when you have nothing? They overlap. And when they overlap, they have something in common. The iron fist. If somebody does less well, that doesn't mean you're going to do better. All right, I'll be right back.